For years, the old Whitaker barn stood quiet beneath the hills of Cedar Hollow, leaning, rotting, forgotten by most. Locals passed it without a glance. Some said it was cursed. Others just said it stank. No one questioned why the owners never rebuilt. Not after the fires. Not after the disappearances. But on a cold autumn morning, when frost still clung to the grass, a retired police dog, named Zeus, began barking near the warped floorboards. What he unearthed beneath that barn shattered a decade of lies, and made one man finally face what he'd buried long ago. If stories like this stay with you, consider staying with us. Cedar Hollow, Kentucky, October 11th, 7:12 a.m. The wind carried the faint scent of smoke through the holler, even though no fire had burned there for years. Ash still lived in the soil, in the trees, in the air that clung to the bones of Cedar Hollow. Detective Lyle Mercer squinted through the fog curling around the fields as his truck rumbled down the gravel path. The frost hadn't melted yet. It crisped under his boots when he stepped out, sharp and brittle like the truth he'd never been able to dig up. He looked down at the old shepherd at his side, for mottled gray, ears twitching. "You really want to do this, boy?" Lyle asked. Zeus didn't answer. He just started walking, slow at first, then with certainty, toward the slumped, leaning figure of the Whitaker barn. It had been 8 years since the barn burned, 12 since the kids went missing. 4 of them, all under 13, all vanished in one summer. People whispered about it, but stopped looking after a while. The barn had been cleared twice by the county. Once after the fire, once more after that wild-eyed mother tried to set ablaze herself. Nothing ever came of it. Just stories, rumors, guilt that stuck in Lyle's chest like a splinter. He was off duty now, officially retired. But this wasn't official business. This was personal. Zeus stopped near the southern wall, where the grass refused to grow. The dog's body tensed, nose twitching. Lyle watched him circle, paw the dirt once. Then again, faster now. Lyle's throat dried. He dropped to his knees. "Easy, Zeus," he whispered. "What V you got?" The shepherd began digging with both paws, growling low in his chest. The dirt here was packed thick. Lyle knew the spot. He'd stood there 100 times. So had Sheriff Wiggins. So had that damn reporter from Lexington, who nearly ruined Lyle's career claiming a cover-up. Lyle grabbed a rusted rake left leaning against a fence, broke the frozen topsoil, and helped. 10 minutes later, the earth loosened, the frost cracked, and a smell hit him. Sweet and sour and wrong. Zeus whined, backed away. Lyle stopped. His breath clouded in front of him as he leaned closer. A thin, dirty corner cloth stuck out of the mud, red plaid, child size, still wrapped around something. He didn't need to see the rest. He reached for his phone, but paused. His hand trembled, because he'd seen that pattern before. Knew it, in fact, from a photograph that used to sit on his desk. A missing persons flyer from 2013. "No," he muttered. "Please, no." Lyle dialed anyway. "Sheriff's office." Came the voice on the other end. "It's Mercer," he said, trying to keep the shake out of his voice. "You need to get out to the Whitaker place. Bring forensics. And backup. We got something. Maybe more." The pause was long. "Mercer, you're retired," the woman said. "I know," he whispered. "But the kids, they're here." Cedar Hollow Sheriff Department, 8:26 a.m. Sheriff Jonah Wiggins stared at the evidence photo without blinking, his jaw set hard, teeth grinding under his tongue. His hand hovered near his holster like it used to when he was young, when the world was easier to explain. 4 sets of remains had been uncovered in less than an hour, all partial, all wrapped in clothing consistent with the children reported missing between May and July of 2013. One of them, a girl named Cassidy Ellison, had worn that exact red plaid shirt on the last day she was seen. Zeus had found them, and Lyle Mercer, the man Wiggins had quietly edged out of the department a few years back, had been right to come back. "Christ," Wiggins muttered. "All these years." Deputy Ruth Alvarez stood in the doorway, face pale. "They're closing off the entire property," she said. "Forensics are bringing cadaver dogs and soil experts. Sheriff, there's more than 4 spots." The K-9 unit found at least 2 other disturbed areas. Wiggins nodded once. His mind spun like it used to when he was a rookie. Only now it spun with a heaviness. Politics. History. Mistakes. Regret. He looked out the window toward the hills. Fog still hung like a curtain. "We ever re-interview the Whitaker boy?" he asked. Ruth shifted. "Matthew?" "No. He left town after the fire. Moved to Tennessee. Never came back." "We bring him in," Wiggins said. "Now." Cedar Hollow, 12:41 p.m. The hills around the barn were crawling with deputies in news vans by early afternoon. Zeus sat in the passenger seat of Lyle's truck, ears alert but calm now. He watched Lyle pace just beyond the barn's remains, hands deep in his coat pockets, eyes tracking every step the investigators took. He could feel the past rising around him, like smoke off still hot coals. He remembered the search parties, the interviews, the whispering families. How Cassidy Ellison's mother stared at him with eyes that didn't blink, saying only, "Find my baby." Lyle had failed her. All of them. Until now. A soft voice broke through the hum of radios and forensic chatter. Detective Mercer. He turned. A woman stood behind the gate. Blonde hair. Gray coat. Tall, thin. He knew her before she spoke again. "Emily Ellison," she said. Cassidy's older sister. She was 17 when her sister vanished. Now she looked older than her years, face lined with something beyond time. "I came as soon as I heard," she said. Lyle nodded. "I wish it weren't what you think." Emily's eyes drifted to Barn. "I never believed she ran away, no matter what the school said, or the papers." "You were right." She turned back to him. "So, who did this?" Lyle looked at the ground. He didn't have an answer. Not yet. But a name had begun to echo in his mind since Zeus dug that first hole. Matthew Whitaker. The owner's son. Quiet. Strange. Always wandering the fields alone. He was 16 when the kids disappeared. Said he'd seen nothing. But his story was thin. Always was. And then he left town. Now he was coming back. Nashville, Tennessee, 3:03 p.m. Matthew Whitaker sat at a diner booth, sipping cold coffee and staring at a map that didn't show Cedar Hollow anymore. He felt the vibrations before he heard the knock. Heavy fists on glass. 2 men stood outside the window. Suits. Guns. Behind them, a marked cruiser waited with lights off. Matthew stood slowly, folded the map, and slid it into his coat. He didn't resist. He didn't ask why. Because he already knew. Back in Cedar Hollow, 4:46 p.m. When Matthew stepped out of the cruiser, Lyle was waiting. Their eyes met. 2 men tied to the same ghost town. "You look older," Matthew said, voice calm. "So, do you?" Lyle replied. Matthew looked toward the barn. "You finally found them, huh?" Lyle stiffened. "You knew?" Matthew looked down at Zeus, then back at Lyle. "I didn't bury them," he said, "but I know who did." Lyle took a step closer. "Then tell me." Matthew's jaw tensed. His voice dropped. "You won't believe me," he said, "because it wasn't just one person." He turned his head slowly, eyes drifting toward the old road that led to the mayor's estate. It was a group. And with that, everything Lyle thought he knew about Cedar Hollow began to crack. Cedar Hollow, October 11th, 6:12 p.m. They sat in interview room B, though it wasn't really meant for real cases anymore. The overhead light buzzed faintly, flickering with a rhythm that got under skin. Outside the one-way glass, Sheriff Wiggins watched, arms folded, unmoving. Inside, Lyle leaned over the metal table, face worn, voice steady. Matthew Whitaker sat across from him, hands cuffed, legs crossed casually like he was waiting on a late lunch. "You said it wasn't just you," Lyle said. "Start there." Matthew exhaled through his nose. "I was 16 when they started using the barn. I didn't know the first time. I didn't even know what I was seeing when I did catch on." "Who's they?" Matthew looked at the glass. "They met late, always after the town hall meetings. Sheriff knew. He used to show up in uniform. So did the mayor. And there were others." Lyle felt his stomach twist. Matthew leaned forward. "They called it the restoration. Said the town was sick. that the kids were born wrong, touched, cursed, said they were cleansing the bloodline. Lyle's voice dropped to a growl. You're saying they murdered children to purify the town? No, Matthew said. I'm saying they sacrificed them. Believed it would fix something. That would bring back the luck Cedar Hollow lost after the mines closed. You expect me to believe this cult nonsense? Matthew's eyes went hard. You ever notice how every time something bad happened, someone important got promoted? The Ellison girl vanished, and her uncle won the contract to pave the main road. The Carvers lost their boy, and their bank loan got forgiven. You think that's coincidence? Wiggins turned from the glass, his face pale, eyes stunned. Inside the room, Lyle stood slowly. You're not crazy, he said, but I don't trust you either. Matthew smiled faintly. You shouldn't. Lyle walked to the door, but paused. Why come back, he asked. You could have stayed gone. Matthew's smile faded. Because I was the one who dug the graves. Whitaker Barn, 7:24 p.m. The sun was gone. The sky was a slow bleed of orange to black, and the air tasted like rain. Forensics had finished the initial dig. They'd found 6 sites, not 4. All shallow, all with scraps of cloth, bone, rusted chains. One with a pair of children's shoes perfectly preserved in mud. Lyle stood beside Zeus, flashlight cutting through the rising mist. One of the cadaver dogs was whimpering, refusing to go near a particular corner. Zeus, however, stared into it, ears back, tail stiff. Something's here, Lyle whispered. He stepped forward. The floor creaked. A beam snapped. And suddenly, Lyle was falling. Below the barn, unknown time. The fall wasn't deep, maybe 8 feet, but the shock drove the air from his lungs. He coughed, blinked against the dust, and slowly pushed himself up. Darkness swallowed everything. He turned on his flashlight. The beam revealed concrete walls, not stone, not wood, concrete, and on them were carvings, strange symbols, circles with jagged edges, children's names. He recognized some. Cassidy, Jonah Jr. Luca. There were 23 names total, all with dates beside them. Lyle's blood ran cold. The most recent date was from 2 years ago, but no children have been reported missing that year, not in Cedar Hollow. Unless... Mercer, a voice shouted from above. I'm here, he yelled back. There's a bunker, a goddamn concrete chamber under the barn. Deputies scrambled to toss down a rope. Lyle didn't wait. He kept walking. The chamber ended in a rusted door. He pushed it open and gagged at the smell. Inside were jars. Rows of them. Sealed, labeled, alphabetized. Each one filled with what looked like blood. Others held hair. Teeth. It was a trophy room. And on the back wall was a single word painted in crude black strokes. Chosen. Lyle backed away. This wasn't just murder. It was ritual. Cedar Hollow Sheriff's Office, 9:03 p.m. Sheriff Wiggins stared at the jar, now sealed in evidence. His face was white. I didn't know, he said. I didn't. Lyle watched him carefully. You were sheriff when they disappeared. I looked. We all looked. Not deep enough. Wiggins shook his head. If what Matthew's saying is true, then they're still out there. The others. He said it was a group. Lyle muttered. That means this didn't end in 2013. It means they've been active. Waiting. Waiting for what? Lyle looked down at Zeus, then back at Wiggins. For the next child. Ellison Farm, 9:41 p.m. Emily Ellison sat on her porch, cigarette burning between her fingers, watching the tree line. Her niece, Anna, played in the grass with a red rubber ball. The air shifted. Emily stood. Something moved between the trees. A figure. Anna, come inside, she called. Anna turned, but the ball rolled away. Into the woods. No, Anna, stop. But the child ran, chasing the ball between the pines. Emily jumped the porch rail, bolted across the field. But by the time she reached the trees, Anna was gone, and the ball lay still, perfectly centered in the dirt. Behind it, carved into a tree trunk in crude symbols. The hollow must be fed. Sheriff's Office, 10:07 p.m. Lyle slammed a report on Wiggins' desk. They took another kid. Tonight, Wiggins looked up, horror in his eyes. Who? Cassidy's niece. Anna Ellison. No. Jesus. Same M.O. quiet. No struggle. Just gone. Wiggins rubbed his eyes. Lyle leaned in. Matthew said they're still local. Still watching. That means someone in this department might be involved. Wiggins froze. Lyle pressed on. How many deputies have keys to the evidence locker? To the station's archive? Wiggins hesitated. 3, he said. Who? Me, Ruth, and Deputy Connors. Lyle's heart sank. Connors had worked the original disappearances. He was the one who filed the final reports. He was also the one who refused to let Lyle reopen the cases. Deputy Connors' home, 11:02 p.m. The house was dark. Lyle, Zeus, and Wiggins moved in silence across the lawn. The front door creaked open. No lights. No sound. Inside, the walls were covered in newspaper clippings. Photos of missing children. Handwritten notes. Names crossed out in red. A basement door stood open. Lyle descended first, flashlight held tight. At the bottom was a chamber. Old, cold, filled with books bound in leather. Candles burned down to nubs. And in the center, a chair, with restraints. Bloodstains all around it. Wiggins stepped behind him. We have to find him. Now. Lyle turned. Zeus growled at the shadows. He's not far, Lyle said. And he wasn't, because outside at that very moment, Deputy Connors stood watching the Ellison home from the edge of the woods, holding something small in his arms, wrapped in red plaid. Cedar Hollow, October 11th, 11:20 p.m. The night closed in like a shroud. Rain whispered softly against the cracked windows of the Ellison farmhouse, dim amber light spilling from within. Inside, the tension was a living thing, taut and waiting. Lyle, Sheriff Wiggins, and Zeus moved silently through the woods, guided only by the faint glow of a lantern swaying in the distance. They were closing in. At the edge of the tree line, Deputy Connors crouched low, clutching a small bundle wrapped tightly in the same red plaid shirt unearthed from a barn. The child inside stirred, weak but alive. Anna. Connors' eyes flicked to the shadows, muscles coiled, ready to run or fight. His breath came shallow, ragged. Let her go, Connors. Lyle's voice cut through the darkness. Connors' grip tightened. You don't understand. They're watching. The restoration needs her. She's the key. Wiggins stepped forward, hands raised. You're done. No more children disappear. No more lies. The deputy's face twisted, part desperation, part fear. You think I'm a monster? I'm just a piece. The town's sickness runs deep. You'll never fix it. Zeus growled low, eyes locked on Connors as Lyle slowly edged closer. The silence broke with a sudden shout, a shout that shattered the night. Inside the Ellison house, Emily sat with Anna wrapped in her arms, heart pounding. The girl's eyes fluttered open, small fingers curling weakly around Emily's thumb. Mom, Anna whispered, voice trembling. Emily kissed her forehead, tears slipping free. I've got you. You're safe now. Behind them, a shadow moved in the doorway. Matthew Whitaker stepped inside, face pale and drawn. Emily, he said quietly, it's over. She looked up, eyes searching. You helped find her. Matthew nodded. I had to come back. To stop it. Emily took a deep breath. But who started all this? Who let the darkness grow? Matthew hesitated, then lowered his voice. It wasn't just the restoration. It was Cedar Hollow itself, the fear, the silence, the old grudges, people who were behind power and faith and greed. Emily's eyes filled with pain. And now, Matthew said, we burn it out. The barn clearing. Outside, the deputies restrained Connors. His eyes darted wildly. Lyle approached, voice low but steady. Why did you betray us? Connors spat. It was never betrayal. It was survival. I wanted to protect the town. Protect the family. Whose family? Lyle pressed. Connors' face twisted with pain and rage. The Whitakers. The Ellisons. the Wiggins, all of them tied to this. He gestured toward the barn's ruined skeleton. We did what we had to. The children were sacrifices for a future. A future no one here can see yet. Lyle shook his head. That future's a nightmare. And it ends tonight. Dawn, Cedar Hollow. The first light broke over the hills, soft and hesitant. The barn lay silent, a hollowed shell of shame. Lyle stood with Emily and Anna, Zeus resting at his feet. The town was waking, its secrets unearthed and bleeding into the open air. Emily looked at Lyle, her voice trembling. What now? Lyle took a deep breath, the weight of years pressing on him. Now we rebuild, not just the town, but the truth. Emily nodded. People will try to hide from this, deny it, but it's their choice, face the darkness or live beneath it. Zeus lifted his head, eyes shining in the pale light. Lyle reached down, running a hand along the dog's rough fur. Thank you, boy, he said softly, a quiet resolution. Cedar Hollow was scarred but alive. The ghosts of the past no longer buried beneath dirt and silence, but remembered, named, mourned. The betrayal and fear had cracked the town wide open. But from that fracture, something fragile and real began to grow. Hope. Lyle and Emily watched the sun climb higher, the mist retreating like a veil lifted at last. Sometimes, the darkest nights reveal the brightest dawns.